Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have a very exciting upload to share with you. Before we get into it, though, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. My merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. Click the like button and please leave a comment. It really does help, and it does matter. And now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload. Shall we? Today's first part of the upload is, well, going to be a few pictures. Pictures that came from two different subscribers. One, DJ from Virginia, and another from a subscriber who I will have him remain nameless until I have permission to use his name, but from an ATV trip in the Superstition Mountains of Arizona. These are very interesting and exciting pictures, and you will soon see why. The first picture that we are looking at is a picture from DJ. DJ lives in Buchanan, Virginia. He lived in Tazewell. He is the boots on the ground in that area. He and his wife have been dealing with a Dogman on their property they just recently acquired. A short time ago, he and I and you all had an upload where he shared that he thought this Dogman had a growth, and I suggested that it was a female. He then saw a Dogman pup, and he's had minor run-ins with this creature and its pup. And 2 days ago, DJ caught a photo of that Dogman. Now, also, during this time, there has been about 8 to 7 deaths and disappearances in Buchanan, Tazewell, and Mercer County, West Virginia. I don't know if this Dogman itself is responsible for that, but I know that a Dogman is responsible for a couple of these very gruesome deaths, and then these bodies are then taken and stuffed into a cave. Well, this is the picture that DJ captured for us to look at. And he had texted it to me and said, "Beat that." And I looked at it and I said, well, it's not very clear, but clearly you can see a Dogman in that picture. Now, so far, this female Dogman has not been overly aggressive, only when DJ has stepped into her and her pup's property. He did lose 2 house cats since moving up there. He and his wife are being extra precautious, and extra vigilant with their surroundings, because there was a picture that he had shared with us about a month ago, and the Dogman was in the weeds eyeballing a deer. And then he took this one, which is outstanding. The next set of compelling photos are from a subscriber who will remain anonymous until he gives me permission otherwise. These are a set of photos that he had taken with his wife while on an ATV ride in the Superstitions back in 2018. A brief email. My wife and I were out ATV riding in the Superstition Mountains back in 2018. I saw this and I took the picture. We have been listening to Dogman Encounters for years and really enjoy the info that you are getting out there to people. Like Art Bell said, things are not neatly put in a box. Thank you. God bless. I have one more picture that I will try to send you. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the Superstition Mountains, they are in Arizona. And the Apache believe it to be a hellmouth. There is believed to be a hole at the top of the mountain that leads clear through to the underworld. And it is from this hole that all of the winds the world issue forth. There are reports of strange voices, shadows that emerge from the area, as well as various tales of aliens and lizard people. And there has been at least 600 deaths in the area. The Lost Dutchman's Mine, multiple disappearances, and just other very strange occurrences. I'm not going to get into any of the occurrences today, but there was a man that disappeared a couple years back, and they found his backpack in one spot and his shoe in another and his gun in one other spot, and it's just a very chilling and spiritual area. And then they took these pictures that you are going to see now. So the information and experience I'm going to share with you has nothing to do with the photos, other than they happen to be in the same location, the Superstition Mountains. I'm waiting on more information from the subscriber who sent me these photos. I'm very excited to speak with them. And you've got, the name itself is terrifying. Superstitions Mountain. Superstitions. Hellmouth. Lost Dutchman. 600 deaths. Missing people. Come on. Of course there's got to be a Bigfoot or a Dogman there, right? Well, the creature has made his presence known in various widely separated spots around the globe. Yeti pops up in the Himalayas. The ever-popular Bigfoot emerges frequently in the Pacific Northwest. Texas has reported numerous accounts with the aptly named Big Thicket Wildman. Yet, few know that a member of this brotherhood of hairy hominids makes its home in Arizona, known as the Mogollon monster. The reclusive creature is described as being at least 7 feet tall, with a hairless face but otherwise covered in long, thick coat of either dark or reddish-brown hair. He travels with a wide, inhuman stride, sometimes leaving footprints measuring 22 inches in length. Often reports of the elusive beast involve a piercing, sometimes deafening scream or howl, unlike that produced by any known wildlife. Those who say they've crossed paths with the beast regularly describe an eerie silence prior to their encounter, an appreciable stillness in the woods that commonly surrounds predatory animals. Even more common are reports of a strong, foul stench, which has been described as either dead fish, a skunk, bad body odor, decaying peat moss, and, by someone with a keen sense of smell, apparently the musk of a snapping turtle. Most sightings of the Mogollon monster, as suggested by the name, occur in and around the Rim country. The lumbering giant reportedly covers territory stretching from Prescott up to Williams, east over to Winslow, and down to the Heber area. But more agreeable, he generally sticks to the vicinity of Payson, near the Rim's edge. It is near Payson where the creature was spotted by a cryptozoologist, Don Davis, whose run-in is generally accepted as the first known encounter with the Mogollon monster. Davis said he witnessed a tall, hairy beast during a Boy Scout trip in the mid-40s, when he was about 13 years of age, as he and his fellow scouts were camping near Tonto Creek. Something in the night woke him up while rummaging through the boy's belongings. When Davis called out to the noisemaker, who he thought was a fellow scout, the figure approached him and stood over his sleeping bag. Davis later described what he saw. There, standing still less than 4 feet in front of me, was this monster-like man. The creature was huge. Its eyes were deep set and hard to see, but they seemed expressionless. His chest, shoulders, and arms were massive, especially the upper arms, easily upwards to 6 inches in diameter, perhaps much, much more. Davis also reported being overwhelmed by the monster's incredible odor, although he believed at first he had simply messed up in his sleeping bag. An even earlier report had surfaced from 1903's edition of the Arizona Republican. In it, a visitor to Arizona by the name of I.W. Stevens recounts his confrontation with what he referred to as the wild man of the rocks. Though his encounter occurred further north, within the Grand Canyon, the story may be one of the earliest written records of such a sighting. Stevens described the wild man as having long white hair, matted beard, and reached to his knees. When he approached for a closer look, Stevens saw the creature wore no clothes, and upon his talon-like fingers were claws at least 2 inches long. He also noted a coat of gray hair nearly covered his body, with here and there a spot of dirty skin showing. While this is a not traditional description of the beast we've come to know in recent years, we could perhaps infer that Stevens had run across an elderly Sasquatch, possibly suffering from a touch of mange. Stevens went on to tell how the canyon dweller threatened him with a large club and screamed the wildest, most unearthly screech he had ever heard. After Stevens discovered the beast drinking the blood of 2 young cougars that he had just beaten to death. Another tale, regularly told secondhand at Boy Scout summer camp, involves an Arizona pioneer named Bill Spade. Spade supposedly built a log cabin on the land adjacent to what is now Camp Geronimo, a scout facility. Spade was attacked one night by the monster. who left no trace of the victim, save for Spade's face, which was torn off and left hanging on a tree. The cabin remained for decades afterward. The Mogollon monster could often be spotted loitering nearby, waiting for a new inhabitant to deface. Other stories making the rounds attempt to explain the origins of the monster. They vary in detail, but for the most part implicate a tormented native bent on revenge. One variant tells of a prehistoric tribe who, for untold reasons, exiled their own chief. The chief called upon the spirits and was transformed into a hirsute boogeyman, which enabled him to scare away his former clan. He lives today, continuing to defend his territory. In other versions, it was the tribe's medicine man who performed a transformation, enabling the chief to seek revenge on a rival who had stolen his wife. Further variations identify the monster as a pioneer who was the victim of a native attack. He escaped into the woods, but was cursed by the spirits and went insane. In the strange amalgamation of stories, the monster is a phantom of a white man who, as punishment for murdering a native woman, was hung from a tree by his hands, stretched to a height of 8 feet, then skinned alive and left to die. Damned by spirits, his ghost continued to roam the woods as the tragically misnamed Skinwalker. More modern incarnations of the monster story includes a novel and a low-budget movie, both of which put the legendary beast at the center of the series of deaths and disappearances. Dolan Ellis, Arizona's official state bald deer, portrays the monster in a song as of a somewhat environmentally conscious being that only eats children who litter. In comparison with his kin, however, the Mogollon monster enjoys scant notoriety. In truth, he is regarded by most as little more than a campfire story. He's sort of Bigfoot's loser cousin. Unable to hack as a legitimate crypto critter, he ekes out the living performing a conference and children's party, hoping one day he'll get consulting work. Besides, he really isn't seen that often. Sightings that approach legitimacy are few and far between. Then again, he may not be around that much. It's possible he treks down here from the northwest only for the winters. The abominable snowbird. Kind of an interesting and humorous ending there. Now, I shared this because we don't hear a lot of experiences, sightings, encounters out of the superstitions. Just a lot of disappearances, a lot of deaths. And then this subscriber reaches out and sends me 4 pictures. 2 with the creature in it, 2 without, and just kind of like a thumbnail shot of the superstitions area. Interestingly enough, I love four-wheeling. I love ATVs, I love ATCs, I love dirt bikes, and I have a subscription to Dirt Wheels magazine. And about 4 months ago, I was reading an article about these ATV trails out west, and the Superstitions Mountain was one of them that they had talked about. There's like old ghost towns and stuff out there. Now, these pictures are truly amazing, and I know some people are going to, even with DJs, oh, that's this, that's that. This is, I blew this up on my computer, and it is mind-blowing. And I honestly reached out. I can't wait until they respond, because I'm looking forward to having a conversation with them. to see if this creature made any noise, was it just like a chance sighting, So, yeah, real interesting. And let's end today's upload with some military cryptid experiences. I was an airman assigned to Minuteman Missile Security when I was stationed at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Cascade County, Montana during the late 80s. This incident originated on the west side of Great Falls, Montana, in the more mountainous region, but my post was on the east side of Prairie Lands. While on duty one night, the banjo alarms went off at one of the missile sites, and I responded with my team leader. This particular site was in what appeared to be a crater surrounded by high walls of dirt and a 7-foot fence with razor wire at the top of the dirt walls. Just before I proceeded downstairs, I had the feeling I was being watched and looked up the hill to my right. Standing behind a light pole stood something that was taller than the fence and had red eyes. I could see the entire outline of this figure, but couldn't make out any detail other than the red eyes reflecting back at me. Now, mind you, I'm looking up a hill, and this thing is a head taller than the fence and razor wire, which would have made it 10 to 12 feet in height range. It's important to note that I had been to this site many times during daylight hours, and knew there weren't any trees, bushes, or anything else anywhere close to the fence. The fact is, this worried me. When I came back up to the top, I looked at the light pole again, and it was still standing there. I called over the radio to my partner and asked if he could see anything near the pole, but he said he was too far away. When I finished up, I was supposed to walk the exterior of the fence, shut off the lights, and wait for the alarm to reset. Under normal circumstances, that didn't bother me because I had my M16 and 210 rounds of 5.56, but on this particular night, that fence line didn't get walked. I am naturally a skeptic. If I've never seen it, it doesn't exist. I believe in Bigfoot critters because I've seen one on 2 separate occasions during daylight. Once, while in my tree, I climbed 30 feet up into a tree and looked down on one about 30 to 40 yards from me, standing on the opening. I do not believe in UFOs, aliens, Loch Ness Monster, or any other phenomenon that I have not witnessed. I believe Bigfoot is a natural creature, like humans, and what I saw that night, east of the Malmstrom Air Force Base, may have been a Bigfoot because it was human-shaped, huge, and likely 10 to 12 feet. I had no interest in verifying its identity. Tonight's second military experience. Late 2011, Helmand Province, Afghanistan. I was standing post on a small 8-man patrol base at roughly 2 in the morning. Post consists of 4 plywood walls, bulletproof glass, and sandbags. I'd been up for about 24 hours at this point and was starting to hallucinate through my NVGs, mildly seeing school buses and the like. All of a sudden, bang! My first thought was a round hitting the bulletproof glass. Realized, about a second later, that it was a rock. Immediately on high alert, adrenaline flew. I scanned the area with mini thermals and get no heat signatures from anywhere. The strange part was that we had double-stacked razor wire about 30 meters out from the post, and it was all open ground for about 30 meters past that. So any rock thrown would have had to have been amazing. I called up to the COC and had them use the big thermal camera on a stick to scan the area in case I missed something. They had got nothing. At this point, I'm kind of freaked out, thinking there's someone out there that I cannot see, but they can see me. 10 to 15 minutes go by, and I'm starting to relax a bit, thinking maybe a bird flew into the glass or something like that. All of a sudden, bang! Again. This time it sounded 2 times louder. I get the feeling of pure terror. I feel adrenaline flush through my body. I've got my rifle at the ready, PEQ laser on, looking harder than I've ever looked before at every piece of micro-terrain that a human could be hiding behind and could not see anything. I'm freaked, still don't know to this day what it was, but it scared the crap out of me. Today's third military terrifying experience, early 2012, Helmand Province, Afghanistan. I was 6 hours into an 8-hour shift when I heard some gravel crunching just below my post, which was about 10 feet back inside the wire blind spot. Very unusual because we had an early AM patrol and everyone but myself, the other patrol standard, and one guy on radio watch in the COC were sleeping. I call out, "Who's that?" The crunching stops and I get no response. I use my radio to call the COC and ask if he was walking about. He tells me no, so I ask him to come and check it out. I make sure I tell him to be careful coming around the corner, and I have him keep his rifle up, weapon light on, and pop the corner. As I see him walking out of the COC, the gravel crunching sound picks up again, but this time rapidly, like someone is running. Once again, high alert, adrenaline flowing hardcore. I'm thinking we've got someone on the inside wire, so I start yelling, "Stop or I will shoot," in Pashto, which is Afghan. The sound stops and my radio watch pops. The corner ready to shoot and nothing. There's nothing there. Once again, I'm freaked out. Chalk it up to being paranoid from lack of sleep. An hour later it happens again, almost exactly the same way, with nothing being there. I have the radio watch, wake up my buddy, and he stands on the post with me for the last hour, which passes without incident. I still have no clue of what this was. A kid inside the wire somehow, a cat, dog, ghost, who knows? All I know is I've never been more scared than those two incidents. Today's fourth terrifying experience. This sighting happened in the area around Joint Base Lewis McChord. I had moved out to a remote area in Pierce County, Washington 14 years ago. Not totally in the middle of nowhere, but you can see it from here. Anyhow, I have a little piece of land that I've cleared, maybe 3/4 of an acre around the home, and left woods out back alone for the most part. My woods are home to everything from bear, cougar, bobcat, coyote. Most of the time that I've lived here, I thought I was king of these woods with my .30-06. However, I have been scared out of my own woods a few times since I came here, even with a loaded .45 or a long gun in hand. We don't usually concern ourselves too much with the wildlife here, and I don't harvest anything from my own woods, preferring to let them have my woods as sort of a protected sanctuary. A few times we have been nervous about bear and cougar in the immediate vicinity, but unless they get too familiar here, I am not going to bother them. I spend a lot of time in the woods, and I am not easily spooked, especially if I'm armed, however. I believe strongly in my own instincts, as they have literally saved my ass a few times, so I listen to them when my hackles go up. One day, back within the 80 to 100 feet from the house, I was just sneaking through the woods early in the morning looking for anything interesting I could find. I soon heard some solid, heavy tree knocks very close to where I was. The underbrush was pretty thick, and couldn't see further than 20 to 30 feet from where I was in any direction. I froze and waited, and again 3 loud thunks sounded like someone hitting a tree with a huge axe or sledgehammer or baseball-sized rock maybe. Anyhow, I had my .45 in my waistband and very quickly had it in my hand. I did not know what was making that powerful knocking, but I didn't want to wait and see. I had a dignity not to run out of the woods, but I proceeded with a very fast pace back to the house. Another time we were outside having some cold beverages at around 3 in the morning, hot summer night, when we heard a phenomenally long, drawn-out primal howl that came from a huge set of lungs. It seemed to be covering ground as it howled, and at first I thought it was a screaming motorcycle, then a siren from the firehouse a few miles away. Then it just quietly stopped, and then into a shrill, a primal sound, so drawn out it was impossible. Until it cycled up at the end, I was not sure what it was, but at that point it was obvious that it had come from a set of very big vocal cords and a set of lungs. After exchanging a quick "Did you hear that?" and pick up, "Yep, we're heading for the door." A few minutes later, we were laughing it off when we went back out and listened to some more. Within a few minutes, a fairly large tree sounded like it was being slammed to the ground with the force not too far from the house. This was not a tree leisurely falling over. It was wrenched and violent sound of a big piece of living wood being broken. That sent us back to the house again and for the rest of the night. This time we had spent a long time wondering what we had heard. Upon discussing this with my kids, 24 and 22, they told me they call it the Banshee, and that they have heard it a few times, always late at night. Then, August 2012, I was coming up 8th Avenue out of Spanaway, Washington, driving along the border at the Joint Base at Lewis and McCord, and I saw a huge male Sasquatch cross the road into the military base about 40 feet in front of me. I got a very good look at it. I had my high beams on, and it was fully illuminated very well for a few seconds. Plenty of time for me to see it, do a double take, look again. Plenty of time to see and take in just how big this thing was, even for a Sasquatch. It swiveled its upper body and turned to look at me and hurried off into the night. Needless to say, I was very disturbed and didn't even consider taking a pic, but kept on going. I was sort of in shock, I think, because even having heard all these things and living in Sasquatch country, I'm not a believer. I always figured there would be a body, there would be better footage, or there would be something substantial if it was real. It also occurred to me that there must be a breeding population, not just one, and that with it moving into the military base, they must be aware of it, with all of the night ops and training they do. They have to know and have to have proof of it. No way they don't have any proof. Anyway, I no longer feel secure with my guns in the woods. Haven't been camping since. Keep out of my own woods. I don't feel the need to hunt anymore, to be honest. I still get goosebumps. Tonight's final experience. I live in Springfield, Mass., and in May of '73 I was a Marine. We did battalion-sized exercises in the area of California known as Casey Springs. We were told that there were no roads to get there. We were inserted by helicopter. I was sent out on a midnight ambush with 15 other Marines. It was a computerized war game. It worked on the computer, and so they sent the Marines out to see if it was feasibly done. What we did was we were going after an aggressive force. We set up a linear ambush shaped like an L, and when your victims walk into you, it's a computer kill. Well, we set up this ambush at midnight, and we had 2 large individuals walk into our ambush. We opened fire with blanks. As it turns out, we thought they were bear, but they were upright, so we scramble, shooting our blanks at these individuals, and they separate. One went one way, the other went the other. We got back to our PPB, which is our platoon-sized patrol base, and told our lieutenant what had happened. He radioed it to the commander. This was the first night of our 4-day war games, and it was canceled. We were given orders to light a large fire and get a fixed bayonet and stand 360 degrees around this blazing fire. Although that night we had heard high-pitched screams, the only way I can describe it is that it was death calling of some sort of human-like, not a bear. And in the morning we had 2 helicopters come in with base game wardens and other fellas. To this day I don't know who they were. We were made to bring them back to the area where this happened. 2 of the individuals walked where we directed them, and we were ordered to leave the area. And this is something the Marine Corps do not do, to cancel a computerized war game. There were over 3,000 Marines involved, and the logistics and the money that was spent, and it was canceled. And a bonus experience. My experience is scary, and I've been reluctant to mention it for many years. A few friends and family have been told, though I doubt any of them believe me. The girlfriend who was with me at the time was deeply affected by this, so much so that she never really had been the same since. In the summer of 2016, my then-girlfriend and I were camping in the Lewis Mountain Campground, which is near Skyline Drive in the Shenandoah National Park. We had been there several times before, and we always enjoyed our time there. We set up a large tent and separate canopy. There were no other campers within 100 yards, but we could hear others in our proximity. We spent most of our daylight hours hiking throughout the area. The second night, Saturday, early Sunday morning, we were fast asleep. We had been out and about all day, and we were very tired. I believe it was approximately 1 a.m. when we both were awoken by a crash outside of our tent. I looked out the flap, but I couldn't see anything, so I got up with a lantern and walked to the canopy. I noticed that the camp stove had been tipped over. I assumed it was the wind, or that one of the legs gave way, and shrugged it off and went back to the tent. I hadn't gone back to sleep when I heard a strange chattering. It reminded me of the sound a monkey makes when agitated. Once again I looked out the tent, and this time I noticed a tall shadow standing by the canopy. I woke up my girlfriend and asked her to look. She was frightened, but eventually took a look. By this time the shadow was moving slowly around the camp and making low, deep grunts. The first thing I thought was Black Bear was looking for a meal, but then I realized that the shadow was extremely tall and walking on 2 legs. I grabbed a flashlight and directed it toward the shadow, and when I did, this shadow quickly materialized into a huge hairy beast and lunged towards us. We both bolted back into the tent and cowered against the far side. The grunts continued as the beast walked around the tent. I tried to call for help on my phone, but the signal cut out each time it connected. We were horrified by this ordeal, which continued for about 10 minutes. We were afraid to scream because we feared it would attack us. Eventually the beast left the camp, but we stayed. Awake for the rest of the night, we packed in the daylight and left quickly. I later contacted the park authorities, but they dismissed my story. I'm sure that this creature was what people call Bigfoot. My girlfriend and I soon broke up after this, but she had emotional issues since that encounter. I've had bad dreams at times, and I've never camped since. Thank you. Alright guys, some terrifying experiences and some amazing photographs. I hope you guys enjoyed today's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. And with that, my friends, please be safe, and may the Great Spirit watch over us all, and may He guide us down that path that, well, we call life.